All right, this video is about phase 4 or level 4 in all of the training systems, right? Like you might be at this video after starting on the food training system, like the idea of the treat chase game. You may be looking at this video once you get to the phase 4 of working with a toy-based system. Doesn't matter. For whatever reward event you're talking about, whether food, toys, personal play, doesn't matter at all. At level 4, at phase 4, you're working on the idea of proofing, right? So you're working on the idea of proofing the behaviors. So you've already set the game, you've already taught the window of opportunity, you've already taught how to make interruptions, and then you've taught them how to work to turn the game back on or turn the game on in the first place, right? So the things that we're working on at level 4. One, having the cue itself be able to bring the same kind of attention that Are You Ready brings, right? So up until this point, we've been playing a game, and in the game, we've been doing training, right? So you say, are you ready? You call to attention. The dog knows reward is on the table. We work to turn the game on, all that good stuff. But in a tactical situation, you don't want to have to go, are you ready? And then come, or are you ready? And then down. You need to be able to just say the word itself and have the word itself bring the same kind of enthusiasm and drive and compliance as if you had said, hey, or showed them, here's the toy, here's the food, or whatever, right? Or use the cue, you ready? So what we have to do is we have to start really proofing kind of the tactical application of those games. So instead of starting a game by going, you ready, getting them into that state of arousal and then having them work to earn reward, you need to start the game occasionally by just saying the cue. And this is where it's going to begin to look like the normal obedient stuff that other people will typically do, which is they begin by calling a cue, the dog complies with the cue, and then they give a slight reward event, right? Your reward event doesn't have to be this crazy 10, 15, 20-minute long training game. It totally can be, and it should be occasionally, because that's how you convince them that that kind of reward is possible and why they're doing all the work that they're doing. But you can occasionally just come and the dog comes running into you, and then you break out the reward event just for a couple of seconds so they know that these short bouts of the game can occur anywhere. And I will do what I call Easter egging a walk, right? Like, so I'll set up reward event opportunities where they don't know that they're present. Like, I don't have any food on me, I don't have any toys on me, like I'm doing a magic trick, you know, like there's nothing up my sleeves kind of thing. And then I will randomly, without cueing, are you ready? I will randomly ask for work, get the compliance on the work, even if it's not super drivey, get the compliance on the work, and then out of nowhere from a stash I've set up earlier on my walk, I've made some Ziploc baggies of food, or I've stashed a toy, or I have a partner that's in on it, a helper that's in on it. When they walk past me, they pass me the ball like a bad drug deal, you know, and my dog didn't see it. And then, you know, I go, hey, you know, down, couché, opié, whatever. The dog complies, even if it's not super drivey. Then the reward object or reward event is produced out of nowhere. And they're like, holy shit, it's possible. My goal of doing stuff like this is to get the same level of drive and attention and attitude out of the cues themselves as I get for the are you ready or the production of the reward object itself. Like, my production of the reward object should have the same enthusiasm that my are you ready should have, and at this stage of training, my cues themselves should eventually take on the same power of the are you ready, and the are you ready should have the same power as the production of the object. So that's one of the goals in your proofing, is to fade off the need for the use of the word are you ready to tell them that reward is on the table. The cues themselves should tell them rewards on the table. You will always and forever have the are you ready in your back pocket as a general call to attention. That's not a cue. Like, for example, if I need my dog to come front, I can say, you know, ici, or come, or vien, or whatever your fucking word is, have them come running to the front, and now my dog is locked into the behavior of being in front of me. But sometimes I don't need them to come front, I just need to get their attention on me. So that's when you can use the hey, you ready? And get them to flip towards you. If you have not yet asked for a behavior on your way into the ring, you can go, hey, you ready? And get them to, ooh, what are we doing, right? And announce to them that reward possibility is on the table, and then go into the situation with a higher level of attention. You will always have, are you ready, in your back pocket as an attention getter, but you shouldn't need it to make them think that reward is possible on the cues. The cues themselves should have the same power as are you ready. So that's one goal in your proofing stage of any of the games. That's one of the goals. The other goal is going to be duration into behaviors and dealing with distractions. Now, you should already have your dog unable to be stolen from you during work. During all of the games back in the earlier phases, you have already proofed the dog to the idea that temptations and distractions are going to try to take you out of your work, and you're going to hold strong and stay committed to your work and do that. You've already built that in. So the spike of ooh, what is that, shouldn't be an issue. In the earlier stages, we've basically rewarded every command. Like when I say come, the dog gets cued and then released and rewarded. The dog, for down, gets down, released, reward. So we've gone cue, comply, release, reward. We've done that a bunch, and they're pretty solid in single behaviors. What we need to do now is become more variable in our reward. So when I down the dog, instead of a one comply and then release reward, I can start to chain behaviors together. So I can ask for a down and then a front and then another down and then release reward. So they never know which behavior is going to bring the reward, and I can make it variable. So when they went into the down, instead of getting a reward, they got another cue, but it should make them be like, oh, maybe this is it, like pulling the slot machine. Pull the next one, pull the next one, pull the next one. Like the next move in the chain should increase their hope, not decrease their hope, if you do your training well. So that's one way to become more variable in your training, is ask for chains of rewards, chains of command, and string those together. And that idea is that they keep working with commitment to try to make the reward come out, right? But then there's also duration in the behavior. So you can make them not know which move is going to produce the reward, and you can also make them not know when in that one move the reward's going to come out. So as they're drawing out the duration, instead of going, I quit, this is too long, they're like, just a couple more seconds, just a couple more seconds. So building in that variable reward structure of not knowing which move is going to pay, or not knowing how long it's going to take for each move to pay, but they're into the idea of attempting to, because they've developed commitment to the work already. At some point, though, at some point, you're going to get competing motivators, and you're going to get duration that they're like, starting to be a little long for my taste. And at that point, you're going to have to decide the type of strategy they're going to use. Now, if you really double down on your variable reward structure, then you can really get quite a bit. And there's some people that would argue that you could get 100% proofed, just positive reinforcement, variable reward, keeping their commitment high, keeping their hope high. And there's some dogs in some situations you can absolutely get. You can always get farther than most people believe, for sure, 100%. I believe, though, that at some point you're going to have to go, dude, hey, listen, you're going to have to, right? And at that point, I will use a couple of different strategies. One, you can use negative punishment. I can take, if this is the reward, I can take the reward and go away, right? So like if I go down and you down for a little bit and then you blow it off, I can go and walk off with the reward and make the dog go, oh shit, down is what brought the reward. I broke the down, the reward went away. Oh no. You know what I mean? It's like going, cool, if you don't wash the dishes, I'm turning off the Xbox. So you can use negative punishment to encourage the dog to comply with the commands, right? Because working brings reward, not working makes reward go farther away. It's pretty simple. And almost nobody feels bad about that, because you're not beating the shit out of the dog. You're not doing terrible things to the dog. It's like there's almost always an implied level of that. If you go sit for the cookie, the implication is if you don't sit, you don't get the cookie. They don't get the cookie no matter what. They get the cookie if they sit. The implication is if you don't sit, you don't get the cookie thing. The other strategy to try is a little negative reinforcement. Now, with negative reinforcement, generally, most often, it's with leash pressure and or spatial pressure, or a combination of both, right? The idea is that the dog will, I'll say down, the dog downs. After a period of time, the dog starts to get up, and I can mark and put leash pressure on the dog back into the down. Now, because of the way that we do our training, the dog should have no bad response to that leash pressure going down, because it should be the same thing as if you took out a piece of food and signaled them to down again, right? Because the leash pressure has been associated with getting closer to reward. They already know that yielding to leash pressure brings reward. So when they go to come out of the down, or they're not recalling to front straight into position, or whatever your criteria is that you're using this negative reinforcement to reinforce proper behavior, when you use the leash to apply the pressure, they should willingly and happily, with good attitude, go to comply. Easy negative reinforcement. I'm not talking about cracking the shit out of your dog. I'm not talking about being an abusive asshole. I'm talking about layering in the, yeah, but you must. Like, I'm sorry, but you must, right? The better job you do with your motivation and your variable reward structure, the less you get into the because I said so. But at some point, at some point, you're going to run into the A weighs more than B, and you're gonna have to go, I'm sorry, buddy, but I insist, right? Like, it's gonna have to happen. So depending on the nature of the movement or the behavior that you're using, I can use the leash, I can use a little spatial pressure, or I can use a combination of both. If they're on a place board and they step off the place board coming to me, I can go and put a little bit of body pressure, and then when they get back on the place board, go good, and take the body pressure off. And then that will negatively reinforce, like, they don't like the pressure, so they get back on the bed, and then I'm nice, and I take the pressure off of them. Same thing can be done with a leash. They step off the bed, you add a little bit of leash pressure, they get back on the bed, nice, and you drop the leash pressure, no problem, right? So I'm going to use very gentle insistence, but I will use a little bit of negative reinforcement. So when we get into proofing, what we're starting to do when we proof is, one, I want to make sure that my cues themselves have the same power as the call to the attention, and the call to attention should have the same power as the reward object itself, right? So my cues should take on the power of the reward object itself. I want to make sure that I don't have to constantly reinforce every single behavior. I can start chaining behaviors together so they don't know which behavior is going to bring the reward, but they keep their hope and their commitment to the work alive. I can start drawing out duration of individual behaviors so they can do that behavior, but a little longer, and again, they keep their hope alive while they're like, I think it's just any second now it's going to happen, and they have motivation. Now, when I overshoot that gap, when I ask for a little bit longer or one more than they were prepared, and they lose a little bit of that fire and excitement to do it, well, that's that point I have to go like, nah, but I insist. Do you know what I mean? And I have to teach them that, look, this is happy go fun time all the time, but there is also the implied element of you have to, right? Because again, in the real world, the obedience, as motivational as I want to make it, as awesome, happy, wonderful as I want to make it, at the end of the day, there's a you must. There has to be, or otherwise, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's this is the part of dog training that is the I wish it wasn't like that. But the truth is, if I ask my dog to down, and the result of them not downing is that they're going to get hit by a car, you have to down. Like, if you know what I mean, if something bad is happening and I need my recall to front, and I need that recall to front, because if I don't get that recall to front, something's going to happen and you could get in bad trouble or hurt or dead. Dude, you must. Like, you really have to. And it's not that you must because God made me the man and I'm dominant over my animals. It's not that. It's like if you tell your child to stop chewing an electrical cord, they must. Like, there's no, well, you're autonomous and you're your own sentient being. You can chew I don't want to hurt your confidence by making you not chew electrical cord. Like, dude, you got to fucking grab your kid. You got to stop them from sticking their finger in the socket. Like, at a certain point, we have to layer in the you must, because the only reason we do this shit in the first place is to help dogs navigate a world that without our assistance will fucking kill them. That's what this is for. It's not for ribbons, it's not for medals, it's not to impress our sewing circle club with how cool we are with our dogs. It's not for any of that. At the end of the day, the only reason to do this bullshit in the first place is to help our dogs navigate a world that they can't navigate without our help. So there has to be the, sorry buddy, I insist, right? And the better you do on the front end, the better you do on the front end of all the other shit we talked about, the less often or the less intensely you'll have to go do die insist. Right? And that's the whole point of that. So at level 4, in all of the games, whether that is, I'm going to proof using mixed rewards, like one series, a chain of behavior I can reward with a little food, the next I can reward with some personal play, the next I can reward with a toy. Like, you could really be variable in your reward strategies and structures, but at level 4 in all of the games, it's proofing. So get the cue to be as powerful as the presentation of the reward object itself with no precursor. Make sure that you can ask for multiple chains of behaviors without having to reward each individual behavior. Make sure that you can ask for an individual behavior for a good, long, solid period of time. And when those things fall apart, you got to use a little bit of gentle insistence. You should have the leash pressure already worked out. You should have spatial pressure already worked out. If you don't, you blew through the foundation too fast. Everything we did leads us to this point, making this point much, much, much easier. If you don't do foundation, this part is the part that you get to that starts to suck, because the dog doesn't understand how to alleviate leash pressure. Dog doesn't know how to alleviate spatial pressure. The dog has not already been taught how to be committed to the work, so distractions take them off their gig. They haven't been taught how to shut out distractions, so temptations take them out of their gig. Like, if you do foundation work, this part's cake. If you don't do foundation work, this part's going to be rougher on your dog, and that's why everybody has an issue with proofing, because they either go through with it and it kind of sucks, or they go and they don't go through with it and their obedience is unreliable. So do your foundation work. It makes proofing much easier. Ready, B? Down. Good. Good girl. Yes. Get it. Good job. In. Down. Good. In. Good. Down. Come. Yes. Down. Yes. Nice. Down. Good. Come. Down. Yes. In. Down. Yes. Yeah, come.
Come. No. Come.